College football today. I first saw this from Matt Moscona's Instagram feed where he was explaining why LSU defensive lineman Mason Smith is going to be out for the season opener, which is kind of a big game for LSU. They don't have a week 0 game. They don't play a directional school in week 1.
Right.
They're not playing an FCS team in week 1. They're opening the season in Orlando with Florida State.
Correct.
They had to navigate the waters of no Mason Smith on the defensive line a year ago because of injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now they have to navigate the waters of no Mason Smith in the season opener because he is suspended for the first game of the season because in 2021, literally 9 days before the new NIL rules went into effect, he and fellow LSU teammate Kayshon Boutte, who apparently has already served his suspension, signed autographs for money.
Yeah. So he missed games last year for injury. He will miss a game this year for stupidity. Not on his fault. Not on his part. On the NCAA's part. Because once again, we're like, you know what? What can we do to make everybody hate us? That's what the NCAA does every morning. They wake up and they're like, what can we do today that'll make everybody say, God, I hate those guys so much. And that's what they've done. And they've done a great job. They're the best at it.
Yes, undefeated, perhaps.
Yeah.
At making people angry at them. I feel like there are multiple layers to this story, though.
Yeah.
There's the whole...
Because there's some LSU stupidity, too.
Well, there is. I mean, there's spirit of the law, letter of the law.
We talked about that.
There is the...
Twice in 1 week we've talked about spirit and letter of the law.
There is the hypocrisy that goes along with suspending a player for something that is not only legal, but just commonplace in today's college football landscape.
9 days. It could have been like,
And there is the people that are making decisions at LSU are a bunch of morons.
You can make that argument.
Borky, here's what I think. All right, so spirit of the law, letter of the law. I mean, we get it, right? Okay, the rule was, NIL rules had not gone into effect. He signed autographs. He received money 9 days before the new rules went into effect. Therefore, he can and maybe in the argument of the NCAA should be punished for that. It doesn't feel like that's kind of the spirit of the rule at this point, though, especially given the era that we are in.
And 2 years later, this would be different if it happened sooner, but, I mean, it's 2023 now. You're talking about a violation that, you said it, is literally celebrated now. You've got quarterbacks on salaries worth hundreds, if not millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars a year, driving around $150,000 cars that were given to them, and that is all above board and legal. And this young man dared sign autographs for money days before you decided to drop all of your power at once. And 2 years later, he has to sit out a game. 2 years later, he has to sit out a game. That to me, is an absurdity. And, you know, I don't hate it for LSU. LSU cannot complain about selective enforcement or all the stuff that they're saying down in Baton Rouge today, considering how light they got off for funneling money through a hospital charity to pay players.
What if you just stolen money from a hospital?
I know, right?
You'd be in the clear right now.
He'd have gotten off, apparently. So those are the last people that can complain about this.
One guy did go to jail for that.
Not any LSU players.
Yeah, but the guy at the hospital, Funes, he did go to jail.
Deservedly
the NCAA
so.
didn't do that.
Yeah. Exactly.
And got a much lesser...
The legal system got him.
Yeah, and his sentence was light compared to his crime, too. But I guess that's how it works down there. But, yeah, it's ridiculous that 2 years later, for doing something that's celebrated, he's having to miss a massive game as a result. It's stupid.
All right, so letter of the law, spirit of the law, there's one.
Here we go again.
Hypocrisy.
Yeah.
And I mean...
Pharisees and Sadducees.
Well, I mean, we could... In hypocrisy, we could talk about, you know, what's legal now versus what was legal then, but that doesn't fit with this. Here's the hypocrisy. You remember a guy named Johnny Manziel?
Yeah, exactly.
He was suspended a half.
Yeah.
Now, maybe the problem is they couldn't prove it, but ultimately he was suspended for 1/2 of one game, comes back onto the field, drives down, and immediately flashes the money sign in your face, NCAA. That was an alternate middle finger, by the way, that he gave with the money signs.
Kayshon Boutte didn't miss the Florida State game last year. LSU got to pick the game. It was New Mexico State or something. Why can't LSU do that again? And then the bigger question, which we talked about.
And this is the third leg of this story to me.
This is the part where it's like, what were you thinking?
The morons that are in charge at LSU. Mason Smith was hurt and was not going to be able to play last year.
But they could have said something different.
On the regular, we have coaches that say, we don't talk about injuries.
That's right, Dan Mullen.
I feel like I've heard that before somewhere. We're not talking about injuries.
We have policy.
Not talking about injuries. So why, if you're not really going to talk about injuries anyway, or if you are going to reveal that there is an injury and he is out for the season, why do you not play the first game of the year? Tell the NCAA that Mason Smith will be serving his suspension during that first game.
Yeah.
And then announce after week 1 before week 2 that he's out for the year with a knee injury. Or wait for a couple of weeks and be like, he's been trying to come back.
That's what they should have done
last year. Wasn't been able to go. He
knew.
could have taken that in game 1 last year and been done with it.
And they're playing Florida State last year, so
Yes.
I understand why they didn't suspend him. But it's the same thing. They could have just said in week 2, I think they played Southern. And I don't mean Southern Miss. I mean Southern University. They could have said, he's questionable, he's doubtful this week, we're going to try to get him out there. But unfortunately, there's also this NCAA matter, and he was going to be suspended anyway, so it doesn't matter. And then week 3, when they're playing Mississippi State, he's out for the year. Once again, our hand-raised guy needed to be there. Our vice president of common sense was not in the room at LSU.
And look, we got a bunch of people in here who might be thinking, these guys are pretty nefarious. They're pretty shady. They're trying to – no, it's the NCAA that is a corrupt organization that rules with ambiguity at best.
They rule with an iron fist and stupidity. It's the worst 2 things you can rule with.
Yeah, but it's only when they want to rule with an iron fist.
Right.
They do it when it's convenient and expedient for them, because there are a lot of times where they don't rule at all for a really, really long time, or when it's pretty clear how a ruling should come down.
Yeah.
It doesn't come down that way at all.
No, you're right about that.
Yes, my favorite phrase was, this was the year that Ole Miss's NCAA investigation went to kindergarten.
Went to kindergarten.
Yes, that was my favorite. All right.